welcome back to what could possibly be our last in our series of talking to people that have submitted in the urgent case to the Tribunal around the removal of Section 127 from the Education and Training Act and the curriculum reforms under this current government. Ripeka, it is fantastic to have you with us. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself because I know you're very familiar to Claire and myself, but there's definitely others out there.
Kia ora koe lea, kia ora koe tau, ko Ripeka Lessels tōku inua, he uri a hau no Naitu hoi no Ngāti Awa, ko hau te manukura o te riuroa, hei tēnei wā. I'm Ripeka and I hail from the mountains of Naitu hoi and Ngāti Awa, and I'm the current president of NZDI Te Riuroa. Kia ora.
Kia ora, and so lovely to see you, Ripeka, and really looking forward to hearing about NZDI's submission. But before we get into the actual guts of that particular submission, some people will be aware, maybe not everyone aware, that actually how this whole hearing came to be was actually a bit of a joint effort on behalf of NZDI, Te Runga o Ngāti Hine and Te Kapotai. So can you tell us a little bit, how did those three entities come together and how did that end up turning into an urgent hearing?
So NZDI has had a case before the Waitangi Tribunal for a wee while now, and which started probably actually before I became the president. The case was lodged by Sonia Hotiri and myself. And the case was about a whole lot of other things that this government was doing that had an impact on Māori, not just... Well, in fact, Section 127 hadn't been removed when we put our first case forward. In actual fact, it was around the defunding of Te Ahua Te Reo Māori, and then the way in which, and then it included the disestablishment or the defunding of resource teachers of Māori and resource teachers of literacy. But there were quite a few other issues that came to light for Māori in education. And so we put that claim in quite a while before this one came up. And of course, when Te Kapotai and Ngāti Hine put this case forward, we were asked to consider whether or not the work that we were doing for the previous case could be a part of this one. And of course, we said yes, because by then the minister had taken it on herself to withdraw Section 127(1)(d) of the Education and Training Act, which then just kind of piled on to all of the other stuff that that we were really, really concerned about then. So, and then Te Kapotai and Ngāti Hine were just really pleased and happy to have our support and come together with a claim of this nature.
And it came together quite quickly in the end, didn't it? I feel like it got announced and then it was all on.
Yeah, so we lodged the claim, this particular claim, last year, but in December last year, our lawyers applied for urgency to the tribunal. It's not easy. There is a threshold to get an urgent case heard before the inquiry before the tribunal, and so they lodged it in December last year, and so the lawyers didn't hear about whether or not we got urgency until March this year. So it's highly unusual for it to take so long.
Yeah.
Apparently the judge hadn't quite looked at the application for urgency. Anyway, she granted urgency in March. And she granted it for April the 5th, the 14th, 15th, 16th of April. So it gave a small window for all of the lawyers to get their briefs of evidence, their submissions, their witnesses together. So it was pretty much heads down and bums up for 2 weeks while we got. I think about 2 weeks to get it all organised.
So we've been talking to people that have been asked to submit. Given that you're given that NZI Te Reo is named, do you have a different role in the way that you pull your submission together, or is it the same as all of the other submitters?
Well, because we were named, and the case was taken for NZI Te Reo by myself and Asonia Hoterini, which meant that we opened the case and began to talk about, our why we brought the case and what it was, what affected us. But it's I guess everybody that we asked to put in a brief of evidence or a submission, all of them said yes. I mean, we could have had a room full of people, but we didn't have the time to put a room full of people. So we actually didn't even have the time to have them all be heard. But we had more submitters than we actually had people that were speaking at the tribunal, because it affected everybody. It didn't just affect me or Sonia or just a small group. It actually affected a huge range. And so our role, because we were one of the claimants, or one of the applicants, we led the NZDI and all the people that spoke as witnesses and gave briefs of evidence, including Bevan and Richard. But there were a whole host of others that also gave evidence for NZDI.
It was an incredibly stellar lineup of submitters and speakers, and Annette Sykes, I mean, we've said it before, Annette Sykes was quite extraordinary to watch when she got into flow as well.
You could see she was the old girl in the house because she had process.
And she could call up things.
She did, but not only that, there was no fear in her asking the judge to consider things because it had an impact if the judge didn't consider it. For instance, the stage 1 of the report was part of Annette requesting that the judge have the report ready because of what the government were planning to do. And so they got it ready by last Friday.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah.
So do you want to take us through sort of like from a high level for those who didn't sit through the tribunal hearings and may not have found their way to the actual physical submissions? Could you take us through a bit of just a high level summary of what you focused on as NZDI?
So there were two parts, I think, to NZDI's claims. One was really, and the one that I guess was pertinent to me was the removal of Section 1271D. What we didn't know, so we knew that removal was about boards of trustees being released from their obligation to give effect to the Treaty of Waitangi.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as a rollout of that, we saw what happened with Tania Waikato. We saw 1,800 schools say, nah, they weren't going to do that. But that was the first part of our claim was around that. But also because the minister had removed it without actually consultation, without actually allowing us to submit on it, without even asking or saying, okay, well, we're thinking of doing this. Let's investigate. And she didn't do that. Let's explore it. Let's ask people. That gave grounds for our urgency. She didn't, as far as we were concerned, she breached her treaty obligations, because it doesn't matter whether and I've since learnt this in law, having been to the court a few times in my short time as president. I've been to the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Waitangi Tribunal.
People are going to start talking, Rebecca.
They're going to say, kick her out, he's costing us litigation costs. But what I've learnt is it doesn't matter whether or not Parliament or have parliamentary sovereignty, or whether they have statutory obligations, they have still got to have an obligation to the Treaty of Waitangi. They have still got to consider their obligation to the Treaty of Waitangi. And we kind of felt in this case that she did not.
Yeah.
That she breached that by not talking to anybody. And then what we found out in our submission, we made those calls about the impact of removing Section 127(1)(d) from legislation, and the impacts it would have on tamariki Māori going forward, so our mokopuna, and whether or not they had thought wide on that impact before they removed that particular section of the Act. I mean, I remember having this conversation with David Seymour, maybe a couple of years ago, when he was invited to talk to the area schools conference. And I was fortunate enough to ask him a question. And my question was, David, why are you removing any obligations on boards of trustees and charter schools to give effect to the treaty? And he said to me, well, you don't need a treaty. You don't need the law to tell you to teach the treaty. Anybody can do it. You don't need a piece of legislation to tell you to do it. And I said to him, David, we didn't have it for 160 years. And guess what? Nobody taught it in 160 years, David.
I mean, you can apply that same bloody position to any law or anything. Oh, yes. You don't need it. It's common sense.
Yes.
We'll do it.
Yes.
It's just like, it's such absolute nonsense.
And he wouldn't use an argument like that around protecting property rights.
No, he wouldn't. He just absolutely wouldn't. But in their efforts to remove Section 127(1)(d) of the Act, what we were able to find, we didn't find this out until the night before going to court, was that this government had other plans. They had other pieces of legislation that they were planning on having a treaty reference review over. And that never came out until the night before. And in the cabinet paper, it said that the cabinet were looking at introducing a law by the end of the first quarter, which was last term 1, just before we were going into the court. And that just sent warning bells, to us, and it sent warning bells to Annette, it sent to our lawyer, it sent warning bells everywhere because of that. But as a result of all of that, what we were able to find out in this particular case was the removal of Section 127(1)(d) was a planned removal that happened between. And it's, the documentation is in the evidence, is in the report, that it was planned between the Minister of Education and the Minister of Justice.
Yeah. So they can't palm this off as a coalition. I mean, the thing that just drives me nuts is that everyone was up in arms about the Treaty Principles Bill. This is the Treaty Principles Bill 2.0. And it's not, they don't even have the coalition to hang this on. And people aren't up in arms. Why not? It drives me bonkers.
Yeah, I think the way in which this was done by stealth, it didn't matter, because we heard at the tribunal, in fact, the judge called Andrew Kibblewhite to come in and give evidence. He's the Secretary of Justice and the Deputy Secretary. She ordered both of them to come in. Well, asked both, requested they come in. They both came in and were able to tell us quite clearly that that their advice to the Minister of Justice was, hang on, our advice is you need to consult, you better consult, it might have an impact, so don't do it until you consult. And did they listen? No, they didn't. The same with the Minister of Education. She was told, hang on, you need to consult. You need to talk it through with Māori. Did she listen? She didn't.
And I think that kind of highlights the really important role that the tribunal plays in being able to hold governments to account, because without that important intervention, the election would really be the next mechanism that we would have. Yeah. Did you get any type of explanation as to why the minister did this without any type of process that would allow for submissions? Because the other time I'm aware that she's done this was around the scrapping of pay equity, where within 2 days it was put through urgency. I mean, is it too cynical to say she just didn't want to deal with the public backlash? Is it as simple as that?
That's not the words they use, but they didn't want to do it because it was going to be too controversial. They didn't want to do it. They were too.
How is that even legal? How is that grounds? Like the worse the policy is, the less likely we are to consult on it. I mean, it's just like
yeah.
It blows my mind. It's just shocking.
Yeah,
shocking.
I think that the minister, both of them, and the evidence is in Paul Goldsmith's letter to the National Iwi Chairs Forum around, we're going to make these changes. Here they are. What do you think? Can you respond by the 24th of April? Not, what do you think, and do you want to come and help us do this, and can we do this together? That wasn't what his letter was about, and of course he got the backlash he was probably expecting from the National Iwi Chairs, which was, you stop what you're doing right now. If you want to have a relationship with Māori and the Crown relationship, if you want that relationship to be a great one, then you stop what you're doing now. That's what our minister just didn't, they just didn't think that there was enough time. Although her advisors did tell her, you need to do this. Don't do this without consulting with Māori particularly.
So that was the first part of your submission.
Yes.
What was the second part that NZEI focused on?
The second part of the submission was around the curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's when you got, and you've heard Bevan, and you've heard their part was the second part of the curriculum. And, they were just, I sat there boggled at their information. They needed no help from us, really, to layer their information, because these boys have been gathering this information.
They are
for a while.
Journalists. They are.
They did a phenomenal job of just laying it out how it was, and to the extent where both of them could almost pick the day and the time that it happened. And they just were phenomenal. They
have found and they've kept all of the receipts.
Absolutely.
Bloody fantastic, yeah.
It was really fantastic. And of course, they were the substantive part, them and the stuff that Jesse Moss, our Jesse Moss was able to do around the curriculum. And just the way in which the curriculum was, what's the word? Oh, I'm trying to think of a good word of saying, kind of just spliced together by people who are, we don't consider the experts in the field necessarily, but they were able to kind of peel back all those layers and give the tribunal a view of who was in the room when the social sciences curriculum was being done, or the New Zealand histories was being done, and not the Aotearoa history. Who was in the room when the English curriculum was being?
And wasn't that very opaque? How come we don't know anything about who was involved there? Oh,
I know.
Just phenomenal.
They were brilliant.
Can we give Jessie Moss a shout out for her explainer reels that she's been doing?
Yeah.
She's been doing stuff fantastic, like taking us through step by step. Like, I feel like I have been educated by Jessie over, recent weeks and months. She's doing a fantastic job of just laying it out really clearly what's going on.
And she has a good handle on the Marautanga o Aotearoa as well. Yeah, because she was kind of the part of the team, and of course the mere fact that the minister says, the other day in the House that. The Marautanga of Aotearoa had absolutely nothing in it, had not a word, nothing written, was just a blatant lie.
Yeah,
it really was, because we were a part. I mean, they came and visited us in NZEI.
What was the terminology that was used today in a press release around, the malaise? She's rescued us all from decades of a malaise. It's just like, what the?
That's probably her word.
Yeah.
the Malays. But so that was
extraordinary.
the second substantive part of the hearing was actually around the curriculum, and they were able to delve into the parts of the curriculum that was specific to them, and they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the cross questioning that took place of senior ministry officials. That was really good, and it showed exactly how good those tribunal lawyers are around the quality of the questions they asked, and they were hyper aware of any response that actually didn't answer the question. And a number of times they got pushed a couple of times and then just said, "Oh, we're just going to have to come back with a written answer." Particularly around the evidence that they had put together around equity and whether or not they had commissioned the piece of research into it. Bruce and Trace took great pleasure in assuring us that yes, the ministry had funded that.
But they lost it, didn't they? It seemed to get lost somewhere.
Oh no, Bruce has got it.
Yeah. No. I remember reading that report when it first came out, but it was commissioned by the ministry, and it was so funny that none of them knew.
No,
none of them knew.
Selective memories.
There were towards the end of your submission a number of remedies that you floated. Are there some of those that you wanted to highlight around what you thought it would take to put things right?
Well, one of the ones that we floated was that they needed to stop with any more. They needed to they needed to halt the changes to the curriculum, but also they needed to stop any more kind of, I don't know, dismantling of treaty references in the Education Training Act. Well, we know what happened on Friday after the report was. Well, actually, I think it came out just before the report. We knew it was coming at midday. Where Paul Goldsmith has already said, no, we're going ahead. We're going to do this and do this and do this. So it appears that they're going to just ignore what the tribunal is saying about those remedies. So we wanted them to stop doing what they're doing, make sure that particularly with the curriculum, because we felt that the curriculum needed they needed to be able to rethink, restart, whatever it is, reimagine the curriculum, because it was just not fit for purpose. But I'm hoping that the second part of the remedies, because we had to come up with 5 remedies. I just can't remember what the third one was, but what they all were. But I remember thinking at the time, I wonder if this government is actually going to listen to these remedies. But the tribunal was really, really, particularly for this one anyway, because of their failure to engage, that they needed to go back and re-engage with us. That was number one, was you need to go back and re-engage with Māori and with the sector. I can't see that.
No.
I can't see this government doing that. They're just
there's no desire. They just like this aversion to slowing down. I'm sorry. I know that we've had a win with that pushing out of the 0 to 8 curriculum, but really it's just, I feel like we've been throwing some crumbs to keep some, so she can say that she has seemed to be listening and saying that she's taking action. It's not really meaningful pausing, listening, and a respond to things. And then we have, I think it was on Q&A on Sunday, I believe the minister declared that she has done more for Māori students than any other minister. Could you comment on that, Ripeka?
I'd really love to see her evidence.
Yeah.
This is one thing that this minister is not good at giving as evidence. Yeah. It's easy enough to spout
good at giving headlines, but...
Yeah, good at doing that, but certainly not. I can tell you that, in fact, we know and evidence shows us this, and Māori have been doing this for a wee while, kura kaupapa and ngā kura iwi, that culture, identity and language matters. absolutely matters. And that's where the success of the Kura Kaupapa children and the Kura children has come from. Those three things are really important. They love achievement. They want to have rocket scientists. But without these three components, they know that the children are going to need extra support when their language, their culture and their identity is not intact. That doesn't go just for Māori children. That's for any child.
Yeah.
Get those three things right and achievement just absolutely flourishes.
Mm.
Yep. And I
So-
think of the remedies, Liam, if one of the remedies was asking the government to stop any substantive treaty, downgrading or any weakening any of those substantive treaty clauses in education. They've already begun to do that. They are going to press ahead and do it. I was in the High Court, I was in the Court of Appeal the other day, and one of the things I left the Court of Appeal with in my head was the Crown lawyer being able to tell the judges, and there were three judges, about parliamentary sovereignty and what does that mean to have parliamentary sovereignty. The minister has an obligation to do certain things, but Parliament has sovereignty. And so the judge said, well, let's explore that. What does that mean? So we know where parliamentary sovereignty ends, and it generally ends with a law change, I guess. But he said, let's consider where parliamentary sovereignty begins. And these are his words. He said, does it begin when a minister has a bright idea? And of course, the lawyer could not really explain or deny or agree with that statement. But he did say that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even Parliament has an obligation to uphold the Treaty of Waitangi, to give effect to the Treaty of Waitangi and everything that they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's not be around the bush. I mean, they are doing this because they want to kind of weaken the obligation as a country to be able to live up to the ideals of futility. And as you mentioned earlier, what was it, for the first 160 years without these kind of legal structures in place? We just didn't see gains forward Māori in society. No. So it's so frustrating hearing a Minister of Education with a straight face stand there and say we've got more te reo words in the curriculum than we ever had, and therefore we're doing right by Māori. It's just absolutely appalling.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of the actual process through the tribunal, whereabouts are we up to, and what is NZI's role now? Are you guys done now that you've kind of got the ball rolling, or is there more work to do for NZI?
I think there's an obligation on us, maybe not as NZI as the organisation, but definitely NZI as members, to support the next tribunal urgency hearing that's coming up. That Toitu Te Tiriti has taken out a claim, and it's also around the treaty references and the review of the treaty references. So they've taken out a claim, an urgency claim, and it's been granted. And so, as an individual, I've put my name to support that. I haven't talked to Te Kiwi. I'll talk to them this weekend about it. But I think that there is an obligation to do that. In terms of this particular case, we will wait for the outcome of stage 2 of the report, and see what happens in that part of the report. We know that this stage 1, that while the government don't want to act and don't want to move on the recommendations, this ruling and report will forever be in our country's history. They will know from this case that this is what Te Kapotai, Ngāti Hine, and Te NZI Te Reo brought before the tribunal, based on, all these things that the government are doing. They now have it recorded forever and ever, and it will become a test case in the future for other organisations that they will refer to what happened in this particular urgent inquiry.
Random thought. I've been admiring the photos of our absolutely beautiful Māori Queen over the weekend, looking amazing. Meeting up with old King Charles. And I couldn't help thinking, I really hope there's a bit of quiet conversation going on when our Māori Queen is having a chat to the Crown himself. And if there might just be an opportunity for her to go tell them to go rein it in and sort it out. Because like King Charles is so passionate about education, the King Charles Trust, if he cares so deeply about education, and, there's that fantastic connection that appears to be being forged between our Māori Queen and King Charles. Surely there's a role there for someone to put some wrongs right. There's got to be an opportunity.
That is the most harmful comment I have.
I like to believe that, all will be well. Just give it a week or so.
Tell you what, I think we are in dire straits if we are holding out for King Charles to come to the rescue.
A girl's got a dream.
Yeah. Well, she might mention the King's obligation to the treaty while she's there, and if he was to ask, so how's it going?
I'm going to go sort out.
Yeah. And if he was to ask you, so how's it going down there? With she might be able to slip in and say a few words, but whether he'll take up the challenge and come to little old New Zealand and tell.
I'll do like one of those things where you see a piece of paper being handed over behind and saying, just let him know this. Sort it out.
No, absolutely. You would think. But you know what I know? This queen, just off track here, but this queen is the queen for this generation.
Oh, and like
she is
the silver lining. Like, it is fantastic to see someone like that who is so representative and just, and has captured people. I think she's just doing magic.
I mean, I've been around for 4 kings and queens. She is number 4
my Lord.
Around 4. and each of them had a specific role at the time they were crowned. When her great-grandfather was crowned, I wasn't born when he was crowned, but I came in while he was king. But I was there when her grandmother was crowned, and her father, and her. I was actually there at Ngārua Wahia when she was crowned.
It must have been incredible.
It was absolutely incredible. Absolutely. But she is definitely this generation's queen, honestly. This generation, she's young, she's vivacious, she can speak Māori, she's a go-getter, and she's very respectful of her role. She really is. And so far, my grandchildren absolutely adore her.
Yeah. She's been incredible.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Liam. Some moves.
I think that's been one of the themes across all of these chats that we have had, is that while, as we're kind of unpacking the submissions, we're talking about a lot of kind of racist content, but all of them naturally seem to finish with this kind of glass half full, or this kind of like sense of hope around a kind of new generation and being able to kind of build back stronger from this.
And NZEI have played like a shout out to another person, Stephanie Mills and yourself, and the galvanizing that has happened, and that doesn't happen by accident. Like, I know it's been NZEI and NZPF, but I think Stephanie in particular, the way that she wrangled, people won't realise that she sort of put together peak bodies, which are the represented bodies, to really come together in a way that I don't know if we've seen before. So a huge mihi to you and your team.
We did a good job, Liam?
Oh, no, not that Liam. He's trouble.
It's in his time. No, we appointed her in his time. He was the president.
There we go. There we go.
I'm super proud to be a member of NZI Te Reo when I see you guys out there causing trouble.
But the other thing is, she too is. I must say, honestly, she is a powerhouse. She works like a powerhouse. I just think we're so fortunate to have her, as well as she's got a really broad brain on her head. She can see things a lot long before they actually get to the door.
Yeah.
But she's really good. You're right. She's really good at galvanizing and pulling people together and keeping together the peak bodies and things and keeping on top of stuff. And the way in which we engage with the ministry. She does a really great job of doing that. I'm awful. I mean, I said it to the team at the Waitangi Tribunal that were there. I said, I've had lots of proud moments in my lifetime, not all educational, but lots of proud moments. But I was just the proudest when the tribunal ended and I was able to witness all of the evidence, all of these people just give of their time, their knowledge, their expertise to the tribunal. It was just such a proud moment for me as a president. Mm.
But I love it.
And Annette as well, Annette and her team. These lawyers were young. Like, I was thinking, boy, if I had my life again, I might go and be a lawyer. They were just phenomenal.
Never say never, Ripeka. It's never too late.
David Seymour once said to me, because when we had our discussion at the area schools, he said to me, everybody has equal opportunity in education. I said, He said, the Education Act that gave children the equal right to be educated came out in 1877. I said, you're right, but it didn't abolish the 1867 Native Schools Act, which said Māori would only rise to domesticity, not academic achievement. It didn't do away with that, David. It never did it until 1969, David. That's when that one got abolished. So while we had an equal opportunity, I guess, in 1877,
you were
you
schooling
never gave
him.
it to us. Well, and then he said to me, it's not too late for you to become a politician.
Then you just don't meet with David Seymour anymore?
I have to say, the only time we've met is on breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only time. No, he won't meet with us anymore. He won't meet with me anymore.
Cool.
It's not that we've been...
Let's bring this to a close. Ripeka, it's been an absolute pleasure working through your submissions and your thoughts around where we're up to and where we're going. Thank you so much for making yourself available, and to you and the team behind you for the extraordinary leadership that you've shown in wrangling such an impressive group of people to the tribunal and saying the things that needed to be said.
Yeah.
Kia
ora.
Yep. Thank you, Liam, and thanks to all the people that presented.
Magic. Thank you.
Ka kite anō.
Ka pai. Ka kite.